With all the leaks and rumors about the hopefully upcoming Grand Theft Auto 6, it got me thinking about everything that was missing from Grand Theft Auto 5. You know, a good economy and online, proper anti-cheat, no good way to make money outside of buying shark cards, but there was one glaring hole. The lack of a single player DLC. I remember back in 2013 and 2014, it was rumored that there was going to be a single player DLC, which we all know now never fucking happened, and will probably never happen, since they're not going to give us any new single player content. I went on an adventure and bought physical copies of both Undead Nightmare and episodes from Liberty City. And by adventure, I mean I drove to the store and found a copy of GTA, and my Undead Nightmare copy I've had for years. Well, really, I just want to play them again, and now I have an excuse. The first of all the DLCs to release is possibly the worst, being The Lost and The Damned, so without wasting any more time, let's get into it. We start off by meeting the best biker boys in all the land. We get on our roadhogs and head to pick up our lovely teddy bear of a leader, Billy. He just got out of prison and finally acknowledges he has a problem.
I pray. In fact, I'm praying right now.
He gets his jacket back and we head back to the clubhouse where he's already being a dick and yelling at us to get his bike back.
Why the fuck haven't you got it back for me, friend, brother?
It turns out that he hit a young girl and her leg is just gone. Since he's being an ass, we go out and try to get his bike back. First, we head to a chop shop where it turns out the owner of the shop sold it to the Angels of Death. We give him a close shave and make our way to the AOD hideout and slaughter everyone in sight, which seems to be a reoccurring theme on my channel. But still, we get back to El Presidente's bike and have to write information back to the clubhouse. We come into the clubhouse to see everyone high as shit and the Angels of Death show up to ruin our party. So we just fucking kill them. Mostly because Billy shot one in the back, so we really had no choice. We stop them before they could make it back to their chapter, and we have to head back to a nearby bridge just to have to drive back to the clubhouse, which we were closer to begin with. While on our way back, we get a call from Jim, and since Billy is being a bit of a dick lately, we go to see Jim instead. He wants us to go steal some bikes from the AOD, and this will be a large amount of money in our pockets. We head to where a truck is being stashed, go to a hideout, steal every bike in sight, murder every cracked out biker in sight, and dip as fast as possible to where we left our bikes when a couple of corrupt cops pull up on us and kick our bikes over. And you can just see the pain in Johnny's eyes. It's actually kind of sad. Well, since Jim is taken care of for now, we finally go to see Billy. He's forcing a lawyer to get blasted out of his mind, but while having a nice heart-to-heart, Billy gets a text and some of our boys are being jumped. We head to where they're getting their asses beat and kill them with a mixture of bullets and gravity. The police pull up and for some reason just ignore the bikers driving away from the scene, just for us to pull up to another place and kill what feels like 100 people. And in a 100 versus 6, you'd think that they just give up at some point, but they don't. So we just get on our bikes after slaughtering everyone and find out that Jason has died. After morning, we head over to meet up with Jim, who tells us we need to either kill the corrupt cops or to just let them fuck us over. We race to where they're chilling out when James hits them with a liver shot, and we have to make them chase us, while of course staying in their line of sight. We race to the ambush point and everyone dies again. I play a lot of games with senseless murder, don't I? Since the Ben comps are dead, that just means that the only thing in our way are the regular police we have to escape. We get away from them, then go to meet up with Billiam where we meet Ray. Mr. Fancyson wants us along with the crew to go and meet with an unnamed person. The unnamed person is really an AOD hideout, and the meeting is really a grenade launcher sending explosives through their windows. After doing that and pissing off their entire organization, we head inside and murder even more of them, just for Billy to steal their supply of the finest black tar heroin money can buy. Johnny is having second thoughts about Billy and his leadership style, which I agree with. Johnny can be a bit soft, but we don't need to piss off absolutely everyone. We head off just to meet the one and only Liz, who has someone who wants to buy a bit of the sticky vein sugar we stole from AOD. Us, alongside some no-named Russian guy, go and pick up the spoons from Brian, who's being a little suspicious. Then go to a not-so-suspicious, busted-up apartment where we meet Charlie, who turns out to be a Fed. And yet again, we have to slaughter through a massive group of enemies, but this time, instead of cracked-out biker bitches, we have FIB up the ass. Since this deal didn't go through, we have to wait for Billy to find us another, hopefully legitimate buyer. And in the meantime, we meet up with Mr. Stubbs, but first we have to deal with his doorman.
I think you should leave, sir, before I... Dude!
When we meet Chubbs, he's nude, ass and cock on full display. He wants us to get rid of his uncle so that he can get some major money. He's trying to flee, but little did he know, we aren't just pretending to be terrorists, we are terrorists. He's trying to leave, so we just blow him up. Fuck, I'm on all sorts of lists now, aren't I? Just a quick disclaimer, the US government and all the countries I want to visit, this is a video game, I am not a terrorist. Please leave me alone. We are lucky enough to get through a little gate opened by a paid off employee, which leaves us another quick visit to the cocky politician, but on our way there we get a call from our beloved Ashley, who got caught up with the wrong people. More murder happens and we leave with Ashley taking her back to her place. Since she's safe, for now, it's actually time to meet the not so well endowed man, who this time is still nude but at least covered with a towel. When we need to go to a local police station and steal a bus full of white collar criminals and a white collar cannibal. But hopefully he remembers that we set him free, so maybe he won't eat us. We take them to where they leave on a boat, and Billy needs our input on a little spat he's having with the others. It's either give them back their heroin or sell it back to them. And we go with the logical option of selling it back to the people we stole it from. Let's just say it doesn't go very well, and the people we stole it from weren't so happy and decided to go to war with someone who's already killed thousands in the 4 hours of gameplay we've went through already. Alongside Jim, we fight through them, and our boy Billy is arrested. And look, Brian is just nowhere to be found, the little dickhead. We get back to our bikes, and now since Billy is in prison, we are the new chapter leader. Brian thinks it's all our fault for the ambush we got into, but oh well, because it's time to meet Mal, who's going to give us a bit of the fun stuff to take out the AOD, and the best way to do that is to pipe them down. And by that, I mean lazily toss pipe bombs at their vans, but I guess it works out. And since they're dealt with, it's time to deal with the little rat bastard, also known as Brian. We go and meet Jimothy and 2 others, who I think are Clayton and Mr. Cruz, but I don't remember who is who, so, Brian wants a truce, and after being a bitch, he comes out talking shit, which we all should have known how this was going to end. Him and the rest of the traders get on their bikes and try to get away, but apparently they haven't learned anything from the earlier encounter with the most overpowered sawed-off shotgun to ever exist. Once they've perished, we meet with James yet again and hear about some guys' issues with how things are going on in the world. And one way we can clean it up? By slaughtering Brian and his little crew. We head to where he's hiding out, do exactly what you think we should do, and end his poor little existence with one well-placed shot to the throat. Since the Brotherhood is more loyal than ever, it's time to go see Liz. We meet with Liz and Malk, who's become a comedian.
They can compromise these nuts.
Got it!
We've got to head to a nearby toll road where people aren't being properly checked like they're meant to be. A lady's in labor, we let her through and wait to blow these people apart. Street sweeper in hand, everyone hits the ground, we steal their van, pick up Malk, and have to lose the cops, which was surprisingly easy. But we drop off the truck, do a sick jump, and go to meet Liz yet again, who wants us to get our hands dirty. We have to pick up her drug mule from the airport, and it should be easy enough, but she gets caught and is almost forced to give a cop the Guac Guac 9000. But luckily we get there in time before this happens. But we have to kill millions of cops before escaping in their car and taking Martha back to Liz. We drive away, but little did we know, Liz wanted us back 2 seconds later, so I guess we turn around. We have to try and get rid of the massive amount of coke we have. And yet another deal gone wrong, where we not only kill the lady that tried to steal our booger sugar and blew up our bike, but have to fight through the entire city's police force on the back of a bike with another overpowered shotgun. We make our way away, and while running, Malk runs away, and we get away. As far away as away can take us. They take the coke back to Liz, which just leaves us to wait for a phone call, telling us one of the lost that got taken in are going to pull a 6-9. We go to meet with Ray, who doesn't want to help us with our little legal problem, but wants us to steal some diamonds from some people we will come to know very well very soon. We head to the docks and try to be sneaky, but of course that just doesn't go well. We chase down the car with the diamonds, murder people, and take the diamonds for ourselves, and drop them half and half in the trash. After dropping them off, we meet up with our on and off lover, Ashley, who seems to have gotten herself in trouble yet again. But not with some deadbeats, but some real fucked up Russian mobsters, who want us to kidnap somebody named Roman Bellic? We need to pick him up from some illegal gambling ring on Dillon Street. We meet up with Malk, head to the gambling den, and snatch him up. We give Mr. Belen to the Russians and leave to talk to Ray, who wants us to sell off some of the diamonds we just stole. We head to the Libertonian and meet with, shit. We try to make the deal, but it's ruined by someone from the botch deal with Tony. We have to fight our way through hundreds of enemies and even chase down the others and take them down. We try to do some sick Fast and the Furious shit, but we fuck it up, land in the water, and have to meet with Jim to slide him some of the money we just stole. Ray calls and accuses us of stealing the money, but what does he know? We didn't steal anything. Well, we head to meet with Ray, who is already torturing Jim, who with balls of steel doesn't say shit. Jim is able to get himself out of his predicament, slits some guy's throat, and we both dip. He goes to gather the rest of the Lost, and we go to grab Ashley. But Ray's men try their best to take us out. 4 different hit squads, and not a single one of them could put us down. After meeting with Ashley, Shrubs calls us wanting to meet us at the clubhouse, where he's finally fully clothed. Turns out Billy wants us gone and is trying to take a plea deal to get out. We head to the prison he's being kept, alongside the last few members of the Lost, and tear that place apart, blowing open doors, killing cops and members of SWAT, but nothing could stop us from getting to Billy and putting one right between the eyes. We leave the prison, lose the cops, and then head back to the clubhouse where we burn it to the ground and leave it behind us. The screen fades and the credits roll. There's a lot of things I have to say, especially about how the game plays and all about it, but I think I want to keep that for the end since we have one more game to play before we get there. So I guess I'll just talk about the story and various DLC specific things, and the overall problems or praises I have for the way GTA 4 plays will be later in this video. The story has to be one of the most bland Grand Theft Auto stories I have ever played, apart from where everything overlaps, but you would only notice if you've played the main game, the other expansion, or had some sort of prior knowledge about the story. I'm sure most people know Roman and Nico and remember a lot of the original campaign. Even if you haven't played it, you know how annoying Roman is. But aside from these portions where we get to see Nico and the pieces fall into place from certain points in the main story, it feels quite lifeless and a little bit boring at times. While it is a lot of murder, like most Grand Theft Auto missions are, the characters and their ability to pull us further than just a surface level interest is absolutely none. Billy is beyond boring, and he is just a racist biker wannabe who talks all about how we are brothers, but blames us for him being caught and then turning on us and going federal. We don't have enough time with these characters, and that's including him and Brian, who of course is a brown-nosing bitch, but there's no emotion when we get to kill him, or even when we kill Billy. Brian just turns on us and he's dead a few missions later. Billy gets out of prison, then is back within 2 hours, and is gone for the following 5 hours of the campaign. There is no weight whatsoever, especially with someone like Jason, who gets killed while having sex with who I assume is one of Vlad's women, or any number of crazy Russians we meet throughout all 3 games. There's a big emotional scene where we are drinking and talking about Jason, but I have no attachment to this man. Hell, I even killed him myself on accident during one of the very first missions. The only person I think we get enough time with is Jim, but that's because he's a main quest giver and actually has some resemblance of love for Johnny, and you can tell that they've been friends for a very long time. While again, we don't have enough time to get properly attached, it's still more to go off than a perceived friendship and brotherhood. Watching him get burned near the end of the game when he could have ratted on us actually kind of hurt me. Also, I believe he does mention that he has a life, a wife, a kid, and he's still sticking up for us. Shows actual brotherhood instead of little rats ready to flip on us. It especially doesn't help since the missions themselves aren't anything more than murder or on-rail shooting sections. With the amount of power we hold in these sweet little hands and the 2 most overpowered shotguns to be in any video game, it makes me feel like we are invincible. There's nothing anyone can do to stop us. They have no power to change the outcome of this situation. It's a 300 versus 6 and we just flatten them. Even when it's 30 versus 1, they're just eviscerated. There is no resistance out of any part of this campaign, but to be entirely truthful, it is fun to kill people who are constantly slinging around slurs, but I can't lie and say it probably isn't too much for what would be a 2023 audience. While in 2009 it still wasn't okay to use these words, and I definitely won't be using them in this video or my own personal life, it was a lot more commonplace, and today for a lot of people that could put them off the game completely, which I understand. While I don't care if a video game or some sort of media uses these slurs and insults, I know people will. So fair warning if you're looking into this game or the GTA series in general, there is no lack of slurs and discrimination written into the characters. It does add a small sense of accomplishment when those characters are finally killed, especially when it comes to ones directed at Johnny, because he is actually a pretty thoughtful character. He's not a saint, but at times he does show that he doesn't enjoy senseless violence and wants to properly think about what he's doing and how it will affect the group. He's not like Billy, who does what he wants when he wants without a care for who he will hurt. Johnny, while not perfectly portrayed as someone with a semblance of thought, if you look for it, you will find it. The thought to kill Billy, while he killed all the police standing between the two, he hesitated. Billy was at one point one of his best friends, but Billy had no hesitation to pull a knife on Johnny and to rat on him to begin with, after Johnny kept things running while he was gone. I'm not saying Johnny is a saint, but he's not the worst of the offenders, even though sometimes he does sound like Penguin from Gotham when he's murdering the fuck out of a group of people. Luckily enough, the missions coming from Elizabeth and Malcolm are actually somewhat compelling with how they speak to each other. It feels like the relationship it is. Which is kind of surprising. Growing up in Atlanta, these types of relationships are everywhere. An older person being taught and shown how the younger people in the city exist and function, but they find something in common, like music, or in this case, not getting murdered by a fucking Russian mob and riding motorcycles. Even people like Ashley exist more than anybody actually wants to admit. She obviously needs help, and Johnny obviously still loves her, but he doesn't want to get involved. There's so many things that could make this story better, and it shows when you look at Billy versus Ashley. One is more well-rounded, well-written, returns often, and gives some sort of emotion behind their scenes. The other gives me no emotion besides annoyance, because we have to sit behind him in an annoying ass formation. It's kind of maddening being forced to sit in formation, not only to keep up with the boys and hear what everyone has to say, but also to heal and fix my bike. How does that make any sort of sense? Why does sitting behind this slow group of men make my bike stop smoking and my bullet wounds disappear? I could be blasted in the face with a shotgun and just be fine after some brotherly love. Even in the portions where we don't have to sit behind somebody, we are now the head and lose the bonus of being in formation. We don't heal aside from sitting in formation, sleeping, or picking up health packs, so once Billy is gone, we lose all passive healing. Because unlike GTA 5, there is no healing to half health, or resetting health when you go into missions. While I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, it is annoying, and to be honest, it plays to my own stupidity, because I never look before I start a mission, I just expect to be okay. It's on me, but at the end of the day, throw me a bone, will ya? All that complaining is just to say again, we are just so overpowered, it doesn't even matter. But what does matter is that we can show off against the fellow boys with a lovely bit of arm-breaking fun. It is sort of interesting looking at things that made it from GTA 4 and the DLC specifically, which I'll be talking about the Toboggan stuff when I talk about Toboggan, but here, arm wrestling was a big part of the online component when it came to GTA 5. And as far as I know, this is the first time we've seen it. And also, even though it's not as fleshed out as the casino in GTA 5, you can gamble your money away. But there's some things that I think could have been cool as little side activities to do between missions or other online ventures. Air hockey and pool are things that, as far as I know, never returned, but could have. They would have been small real-world things that would fit into GTA Online, but we all know how fucked online is. It shows that they are sometimes fiddling with things before new games, which is interesting to look at in depth of what worked and what didn't. It of course doesn't play anywhere near as well as GTA in its current state, but you can see what they were going for, I bet you, before they even knew what they were going for. But you know what you can't see? Fucking anything, because there is this weird filter over the gameplay for the first half of the game. I think it was intentional to have sort of a, as our eyes widen to see how fucked we are, the world becomes more vibrant. I know there is a setting, but I like playing the game as intended, and it does seem to eventually go away with time, which makes me think it's 100% intentional, but a bit annoying and off-putting. It's similar to the way everyone complains about Breaking Bad because it makes Mexico yellow, which it isn't, and New York isn't meant to be fucking orange either. Well, I take that back. It really does just befuddle me as to why they thought this was a good idea. I will never understand why developers put film grain over video games. For a movie, in my personal opinion, it's fine. 2 hours, maybe 3 of film grain is alright. But some games are 10 times the length of movies and it just starts to hurt my head. Overall, it was okay. Kind of meh. Too overpowered and a bit boring in the writing for a majority of the campaign, but it's not unplayable. If you happen to come across it, it's worth a try, but it will never stand out as a Grand Theft Auto experience someone needs to play in order to really get into the thick of it. But now, onto something I know is good, and that is Undead Nightmare. It's just a normal day in the life of our beloved outlaw, John Marston. He comes home to his loving wife and his son, who seems to be reading quite the peculiar book. As John listens to his son speak, he seems to zone out, becoming entranced in his words, happy to just be hearing him speak, even though it sounds like nonsense. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but Abigail pulls him back to reality and everyone gets ready to get a good night's sleep. As John is slowly falling asleep, he is suddenly awoken by a drunk old man who happens to be Uncle. But there is something that is a little off about him tonight. He is aggressive and jumps at John and Abigail. John, thinking quick, hits him over the head with a lamp, and believing he can be pacified, he heads to the barn and grabs his gun. But this is when Abigail is attacked and a large chunk is torn out of her neck. After a quick shot killing Uncle, we see Abby writhing in pain. Johnny calls out for his son, who just gets too close to his mother and gets bit himself. John, quick on his feet, pulls out his lasso and hog ties them, leaving them in the bedroom alongside one of their favorite meals, raw meat. I'm not doing this for the whole game. I'm gonna go back to how I normally talk. After locking them in the bedroom, we head to Blackwater to try and look for someone who knows what's going on, and we run into Professor McDougal. He is frantic and walks away to collect some of his belongings and gets ambushed out of the alley and, well, now he's dead. Heading back to the alley ourselves, we meet someone I don't remember the name of, but she sends us to a local graveyard to burn the bodies and leave them to rest. But worst of all, we meet her quite large uncle, who seems to have done some things. After demolishing the undead's place of rest, we head back to Blackwater to find it's been overrun and we have to help them. After a couple pew-pews and handing over ammo, we meet a couple of the survivors. One who blames men and foreigners, one who blames a glass eye, one who blames snake oil men, and one who blames the Mexican people, and one who wants to be president. But while they're arguing, they let it slip that New Austin is the place to go, but during their little spat, they weren't paying enough attention. We mosey our way down to the town of Thieves Landing, kill some zombies, take a nap, oh god, and leave to meet the man, the myth, the legend, Seth, who seems to have a way with these undead creatures. He sends us to clear out the graveyards, and on our way to do that, we come around the town lovely old Bonnie lives in. But we have to save the town and just completely ignore her and go on our merry way to burn some corpses, but not before picking up a ponyta of our own. After taking care of the first of many graveyards, we find the lovely snake oil salesman hiding away trying to peddle his wares to the people who are horrified of the undead. But he ends up giving them away with a little bit of persuasion, and it's quickly demonstrated that it attracts the undead and a man just gets slaughtered. He of course sends us on a horrid mission of picking up plants for him on opposite ends of the world, so we will come back to him later and take care of the last 2 graveyards. After killing hundreds of undead, we have quite the long ride back to Seth to find him having a bit of a party, where like a 15-year-old taking Xanax, he just swallows the glass eye, which was one of the reasons we thought this was happening. But since he's obviously just crazy and doesn't know a damn thing, it's time to gather the things Wes Dickens asked us to get: Desert Sage and Violet Snowdrop. After collecting 5 of each on separate halves of the map, just to have us ride across the map again to save him from an undead nipping at his heels, he gives us some spicy bullets and sends us out again to Riley's charge to grab him yet another thing that I didn't use, so it was kind of pointless to go across the map twice. But since Wes Dickens has disappeared, we head back to Fort... what is the name again? We head back to Fort Mercer, and the man hanging up a wanted poster has disappeared too. But we need to go and save a child who's been missing. We head to their family home and pick up Millicent and take her back to where her lovely family are waiting. Since she's safe, we head to the lovely town of Armadillo, which has seen better days, and after saving it, we meet the best marshal in all of the land, who needs us to try and find the two dumbasses known as Jonah and Eli. And to find them, we have to talk to a store clerk who does nothing but spew racism and immediately gets eaten. Feels good. We find the boys who are having a quick munch on each other and end up getting themselves killed. After telling the marshal about the news, we head out to help the amazing Bonnie McFarlane. She wants us to go and check on her father, who after climbing into his barn, we have to put him down too. We have to then go far across the map to meet up with a crazy old man who's trying to take out the Sasquatch. But unlike him, we get shit done and kill every single one of them. Until we reach the final one, who is just sad. We killed his family and he wants to die, but we let him live, and now I'm sure he's very, very depressed. Since we took care of everyone we could, Wes Dickens wants his time, and now knows a way for us to get into Mexico. So we go to meet with a group of defected military personnel, help them take care of an undead problem, and in return they give us the uniform we need to make our way to a train station and meet with the rest of the boys so we can leave for Mexico. Everything's going fine. We kill undead, run from the undead, kill more, but come to a roadblock that we work to get clear from the tracks when we are overrun and nobody makes it out besides us. We hop back on the train and blast our way through, making it into Mexico. On the other side of the border, we meet Mother Superior, who is protecting her congregation by going against her god and blowing the brains out of some zombies, which is just badass. But she needs our help to save the rest of the others who aren't as well endowed in the weapon department. And the mission breaks, so we do it again. Then she sends us to the sepulchral graveyard and hopes that her sisters will be safer with the undead gone. She's not exactly ready to see us yet, so we go and meet the owner of the best brothel south of the border, Landon Ricketts. He needs a bit of dynamite, so we go and save a town with the only reason is to get him a stick of dynamite. A singular stick, that's all he needed. We meet back up with him and he shows us a little trick. He uses the stinky shit we got from Mr. Dickens, and he sticks the dynamite down the neck of the bottle and sends us on our way to meet up with a couple filmmakers. After saving their little camp, they want a retro for their scene, so of course, like the good little cowboy we are, we wrangle one up and haul it back down to their camp, where it immediately doesn't go right, but we could care less, and go to meet up with Mother Superior, who tells us about a man named Abraham Reyes, who is the true cause of all of this. We head to his home and find him chasing someone around a table, and that he had stolen a mask from a secret underground tomb, and in order to fix the problem, we have to take the mask back, fighting through tons of undead, and finishing the fight by putting the mask back on the altar. Since the undead problem has been taken care of, we go back to our family, untie them, and they seem to be back to their old selves. We fade back to see that Seth actually has caused this now, because he tastes the mask, and we come back to the grave of our beloved John Marston, to see that he has come back to life and is now one of the undead that he killed before. As someone who's played endless hours of the original Red Dead Redemption, it's always a treat when I get to go back and experience an alternative story like that of Undead Nightmare. There are so many returning characters that if you have played the original game, it's a sight for sore eyes. But if you haven't, you aren't necessarily lost, but it feels more like an over-dramatized version of the Wild West. It kind of feels like a dream sequence, which it pretty much is. John showing love for his son by not caring about what his son is talking about, but just happy that his son is talking, and then falling asleep with his wife when he's suddenly woken up by his newly zombified uncle after his son just told him his own story about a badass cowboy who kills millions of zombies. In my opinion, that's what changes this from a side story in the wider world of Red Dead Redemption into a dream. The only thing pointed against this being a dream sequence is after reversing the curse, we still come back as undead after John had already died in the original story, and can continue on in this world as a zombie ourselves, which I think is a pretty cool way of tying the story together, and letting us continue the way we were instead of the route lots of games go, where you finish the last mission, the story ends, then when you come back to complete other side areas you didn't get around to the first time, the final mission just isn't complete. With all that aside, it is interesting that almost every person you meet, John has already encountered, and they all keep a lot of their original personality, zombie or not. The wacky professor who has more book smarts than street smarts is immediately killed after announcing he's walking down an empty street just to be eaten by the undead in the alleyway. The old village kook who is always spouting some bullshit exposition about how the sky is falling has the glass eye, which we've already been told is one of the reasons for our impending doom, but also steals the mask that actually caused the issues in the first place. He somehow even gets the undead to be somewhat friendly and cooperative. Playing cards, dancing, playing violin, it's all very bizarre, but exactly what you expect from the weirdo outcast that the town shuns. We even have the town wackos who either hate the government, believe in voodoo, or happily talk down anyone who isn't like them, and just like last time, it's so satisfying to watch them get absolutely devoured. It all sets itself up in a way that is somewhat captivating and really tries to sink its hooks into you. But some portions of the game don't do so well when it comes to the proper and fun mission design. The first I really want to talk about is Wes Dickens, who we all know is the infamous snake oil salesman who tugs John along with every wild goose chase, all in hopes to profit off of the minds of those who don't know any better. And in that sense, John is one smart son of a bitch. He knows what he's doing, he knows when something is bullshit, and he's not afraid to call someone out, except when accepting missions that help further along the story. We willingly collect 5 herbs from 2 separate portions of the map that are on separate ends of the map. And a lot of the missions are fetch missions, which of course give nice, much needed context, but also feel annoying to play through, and also used as a way to pad out the main experience. I love that we get to meet the Sasquatch, get to help someone with a film, and save settlements all across the map, which let us meet other characters who we already know very well, being people like Miss McFarlane and Marshall Johnston. But why do I have to meet these people? And do these side activities progress the main story? Nothing I do with these side characters would affect the end result. We kill a bunch of Sasquatch, we kill Miss McFarlane's father just for it to not matter in the end. As our son and wife are saved, we could have saved them too, but they're dead, so... Also, why doesn't the game explain who we need to speak to in order to progress, instead of making us guess and spend more time traveling around the map, spending more time in the game, and... Oh, that's why. That makes sense. In my opinion, this just isn't needed for a DLC, because more often than not, a person would have played the original and liked it enough to give you more money. This isn't just a Red Dead Redemption problem, but it is one of the worst offenses I've seen in a very long time. You're told that the person you're working with, whether it be Mother Superior or Wes Dickens, needs time to figure things out, and while that's perfectly okay, we are told to just go save settlements, which, okay. But what if I don't save the right one that offers a mission there? It does not even have one of the very obvious green question marks. You are left to figure it out and go to random places in the map when it truly isn't necessary. The game makes you believe going to these places is mandatory. Take for example the movie mission I brought up before. It tells us to go to Gaptooth to collect a retcher, when I could have just possibly saved one from saving the settlement, or even just gone to a closer settlement, which is exactly what I did. As I've said many times before, I do not believe a game should give you a perceived choice just to tell you in the worst way imaginable that you had no choice to begin with. Take the long ass horse ride and go back to places you've already been to do something we could have told you to do from the beginning. Now the game thankfully has a fast travel system, especially when it comes to, again, Wes Dickens, who moves around the map and tells you to gather things from the opposite side of the map just to make you come further out to find him hiding yet again. I always see complaints about the very long, dialogue-driven rides across the world of Red Dead Redemption 2, but at least in that game, the horses can drive themselves. That's not the word, but you know what I mean. There is a sort of autopilot, but that just doesn't exist here. Rightfully so, since it is 9 years older, but it doesn't make it any less annoying to constantly go from one end of the map to the other on a horse that doesn't control all too well, especially when you randomly call an undead steed that just wants to spin in circles, head empty. It's not absolutely appalling, but it's still not fun. The game has a lot of these quirky things that are okay, but just on the line of being annoying. One being the whole burning coffins thing, which is basically just an enemy rush. A ton spawn at you and you have to kill them, which is pretty fun at times, maybe a bit more often than I would have wanted it to be. But luckily enough, they fixed the shooting from GTA 4, which is a major relief. When we can not only use the amazing Deadeye feature, which I will always gush about, but then using something like auto-aim, you are not drawn to center mass. You have to fight against it to try and hit someone in the head, but you aim toward the person and you're free aim from there. And with that being said, the shooting is relatively fluid and easy to understand. The weapons are insanely fleshed out, and also there aren't a ton of different weapons like we see in the newer games. The weapons make sense, and in an apocalypse setting, it makes more sense that there aren't many guns floating around alongside ammo. Even though I still had enough, it wasn't as if I was struggling like you do in survival games, but without the existence of vendors, it feels well balanced in the amount of ammo they give and the hordes they're asking us to fight. Speaking of, it's also interesting seeing the first instance of a weapon wheel in a Rockstar game, and oh my god, is it a major quality of life improvement that I feel is taken for granted these days. Being able to not only pick the weapon that you want to use, instead of having to cycle through everything is just, it's beautiful. Even just being able to hold more than one weapon of each weapon type is something that isn't talked about as much as it should, from the release of GTA 4 to Red Dead Redemption. Personally, it's something I've always attributed to being a Grand Theft Auto 5 thing, completely wiping from my memory that RDR did it first, and it should be appreciated. Aside from my very few grievances, the game plays very well and is still pretty fun, even with the clunk. But there's one issue I noticed over and over, and I'm not sure if it's an issue with using backwards compatibility on the Xbox Series X, or if it's just fucking broken. But there are times during missions or when saving towns that one or two things would happen. Either I would get soft-locked and have to reload, because killing zombies wasn't making the counter go up anymore, or the zombies and people around me would no longer have heads, which, if you didn't know, makes it extraordinarily difficult to shoot them in the head. Not only do they not have heads, but this would usually lead to the softlocks, and even my very fancy ponyta using stamina, when as far as I can tell, it wasn't meant to. Considering when I restart the game, he's back to his normal flaming self, running like a bat out of hell. These issues are not only annoying for recording reasons, like I love just playing these games and glitches give me more to talk about in the video and more to cover and inform you about. Something like this happens so consistently that it started to make my enjoyment of playing the games personally go from like up here to down here. Having to replay sections sometimes multiple times for it to work properly is incredibly frustrating. But again, I don't remember this being an issue when I played originally on the 360, so I'll give it the benefit of the doubt that it's just some weird backwards compatibility emulation the Xbox One and Xbox Series X used to play these games. What's kind of weird is that not much was particularly added to the game that made it to Red Dead 2, because Rockstar has always liked to test the waters and to flesh out pretty simple features, which we can see in the 2 DLCs they released for GTA 4, which are talked about in this very video you're watching. I suppose the similarities between the strangers and freaks, but that's been in basically every game with random events, and it's kind of sad to see. I suppose it was 9 years between releases and their game design didn't change. Why did they not use features from RDR again? That 9-year gap to me is insane, and it doesn't feel like a 9-year gap considering the way RDR and in turn Undead Nightmare aged graphically. It does not look bad at all by any means. I feel that it's probably one of the better looking games coming out of 2009/2010 and holds up well by not trying to be ultra realistic, with it looking amazing back then and still looking good these days, even when put up against something like RDR 2, which of course is leaps and bounds ahead. But it was released in just the right time frame where games looked good enough to not look bad later and not bad enough to look bad later, which is nice. At the end of the day, this is the pinnacle of Rockstar's writing, and maybe not game design, but that's besides the point. A big issue I had with The Lost and the Damned was that the characters didn't grab me and the game was clunky, which this game just isn't. The characters still have their same charm from the original Red Dead Redemption, but now it's turned into a Sam Raimi movie, which I'm okay with. It plays well, looks good, is rough in spots, but overall, a really good experience. I didn't give a score to The Lost and the Damned, but I suppose, let's say this is a 9 out of 10, and The Lost and the Damned it's like a solid 6, compared to everything else that the game has done. It's just a completely normal day in the life of Luis Fernando Lopez, meaning he's stuck in the middle of a bank robbery carried out by the best Irish brothers. When we are finally let go, we just go back to existing around the city when we are almost hit by a suspiciously familiar man. We make our way to a lovely little apartment belonging to Tony Prince. That's just a block. I want to know what that's gonna sound like. Once we are in, we are invaded by 2 young boys, Rocco and Vince, who just want the money they're owed. Since they basically just robbed Tony, we get in his car and head to one of Tony's many nightclubs, Hercules, then straight to Mason at 9, where we go to have a drink and immediately get pulled out to escort some of our own degenerate friends away for dressing like shit. We drive them back to the corner they came from and head home for a much needed nap. After our long stand, we head back to Masonette where Toady needs help chatting with a potential client and some biker. That's interesting. Anyways, he wants help to turn an empty room into a thriving club, but we are struggling enough as it is, so we say no, and someone gets a little pissy and pulls a gun at us, but doesn't know how to use it. We have to fight our way through hordes, shooting down everyone on our way out of the building. That was enough excitement for Tony that we just take him home and get a call from Yusuf, and head to his multi-million-dollar apartment paid for with that. He wants to own the whole city, and the first thing he wants us to do is steal a helicopter for his father. We head down to the pier and first steal a boat so we can climb onto a yacht and steal the helicopter, which just so happens to be the Buzzard. While flying back, we get a call from Yusuf telling us to go back and obliterate them, because it won't end well if they survive to tell the tale. So like the mass murdering psychopaths we are, we do it, and go on with our lives by meeting up with Tony. He's freaking out because he's basically headed for bankruptcy and death. So we meet Rocco, who's driving golf balls at someone, but he sucks. So now it's our turn. We smash this man with balls while Rocco drives around, and he finally gives up the information we needed when a group of people pull up and try to take us out. But again, they don't understand that we kill people on an hourly basis. So they're done, and we get into a golf cart to flee, with Tony actually shoots at people for once. We get away from whoever is trying to murder us, so we take Tony back home and head on our merry way to meet up with Maury, the other roided up half of our beloved Brucey Kibitz. He fucks his couch and wants us to accompany him to the docks where yet another deal has gone wrong, and we have to kill everyone in sight. But this time, instead of shotguns, they have rocket launchers. We jump onto a boat and chase them down with sticky bombs so we can blow them to bits. We take Maury back to the docks and go our separate ways so we can go and check on Tonathy. He picks us up outside his club and takes us alongside Gracie to her house while, we drive, but you know what I mean. The real reason we are here is to listen to Tony complain about some celebrity blogger he wants us to email. We head to the nearest and call him out directly on his website. Tony needs us again, so we show up to his apartment, where his prick of an ex-boyfriend has him fried off of pills again, and we have to wake him up the way we know best and repay Evan in the way we know best. Tony grabs a suitcase of explosives and is trying to go commit acts of terrorism, but he's soft. We give him a quick right hook and go to do the job ourselves. We start with a crane operator and blow him and his crane to pieces. The next is an abandoned subway train. We meet it on the tracks, chase it down, and also blow it to pieces. The last is an airplane that's working on taking off, but not if I have any... well, second time's the charm, right? We take off away from the cops and get a call from Tony, who again needs our help, so we head back to his apartment, where he's still recovering from our 1-2 to the temple, and he's having a little party with the 4 worst people in the city. Tony is passed out, and we go out with Evan to the docks. There's a little deal we need to make. $2 million worth of diamonds. Everything is going smooth enough until some raggedy old biker man pulls up on us and we have to leave as fast as possible. Evan leaves with the diamonds and ends up getting killed while we blow apart all bikers trying to take us out. You know, why weren't there this many enemies when we were the ones trying to steal the diamonds? Even the police are after us and they're in fucking APCs. But we drop off Tony at one of his clubs, and since that's somewhat taken care of, time to take care of Tony. We have some fun time in the bathroom and meet Tony in his office where he has some sort of plan to make Rocco happy, but we meet Ray Bulgarian, who also wants to have some fun times. He thinks the Russians would buy the club, and in turn it would no longer be our issue. But we head to Bahama Mama's where we have to hit on some lady, dance with her, and end up getting some guac guac 9000 when her husband or boyfriend walks in and punches her. But he got a bullet to the face, and so does all of the security in his club. But even though we walked out with a shotgun in hand, the cops just don't care, and we leave with no problem whatsoever. It's time to take a little break and meet up with our loving mother. A little bitch loan shark is harassing her, and we go with him to a fight club where we end up fighting to pay off her debts. 1 knockout, 2 knockouts, and on the 3rd, we take a fall. I could have beaten his ass, but now mother's debts are repaid, so we leave to go back to her place where we meet with the boys and have to take them to a little deal that just doesn't go right. The person we are meant to be meeting thinks we set them up, and the police show up, and we have to take them out and have to not only blow up a wall, but a whole helicopter and flee back to the corner we picked them up off of. We move on with our day because we don't want to go to prison again, but Yusuf wants our help, and he will share a little bit of that. We have to drive him to the Rotterdam Tower, and we have to head to the top to kill the braggadocious business partners, blowing them to pieces since they wanted to set him up. We have to not only chase Ahmed, but take down the entirety of the SWAT's task force, just to take his parachute and scare him enough that he falls off the tower himself. while we float down like the elegant psychopath we are. We head back to Yusuf to find him half nude being berated by his father, but he wants us to steal a noose tank. We head to Star Junction where we meet Yusuf, who lands his helicopter in the middle of an intersection and we fly it out of there. We have to go to where an APC is being airlifted and we have to shoot out the supports, which is horrible, and you go down to pick it up and fight through a whole country's worth of police. We put the APC where Yusuf can pick it up with a crane, and the crazy man seems satisfied. We try to meet up with Mori again, who is playing chess against Bruce and beating his ass. Mori wants us to take him to a heliport where we have to race the boy from skydiving to boat driving to supercar driving, just so we can bruise his ego and our debts are repaid. Maybe. Because we have to meet him again and go with him and Brucey to steal some flashy cars and race across town with the police not far behind all the time since Mori called them. Like, why? We do some sick jumps that we nail and leave the cars on a barge and leave. We watch a little brother spat and Brucey ends up breaking Mori's nose and shows us how much of a bitch Mori really is. But Royd heads aside, we gotta go back and meet with Mommy Luis again, who's feeding the two degenerates we call friends. We have a little spat with Mother and head down to the docks in Bohan. We have to escort a shipment for some unknown people and shock. It goes wrong and somebody tries to steal the shipment, which leaves us murdering hundreds of people yet again. Luckily, a couple of the trucks had already been filled and we leave in those, dropping them in a lockup, heading home and get a call from Tony about the Celebinator who now we meet at the heliport. A nice simple tour of the city, a nice stroll as high as we could go, hanging him out of the helicopter, punching the shit out of him, dropping him out, skydiving to grab him again, you know, just Liberty City things. Since we all safely landed with our dignities somewhat intact, we head to another club and meet Tony, who's waiting on Gracie and needs us to try and steal those diamonds back. We call up Yusuf and ask to borrow that buzzard we stole from him all those moons ago. We head to a helipad, pick it up in all of its golden glory, fly to the Libertonian, shoot some guy in the teeth, and chase down the diamonds where he's kinda just sitting under a table. We take the diamonds, head out the way we came in, and fly away as fast as possible, destroying any police helicopters that are following us. After having the diamonds in our possessions, we meet up with Bulgarian, who needs us to get rid of an entire task force that's trying to investigate him, and is probably getting a little bit too close. We head to a car park just off of Topaz Street where they come in to take us out, but with the help of sticky bombs and machine guns, they stood no chance. As we are running out of the car park, another van pulls up to try and stop us, but we steal it and we are gone before they even realized. Bulgarian told us that he was going to make us a very rich man, but he only gave us $2,000 for killing an entire precinct. With a small amount of money in our pockets, we go back to meet Mr. Bulgarian, who he wants us to become a contracted killer instead of a murderous contracted killer, alongside, I can't remember how to pronounce his name ever, Timur. We take a helicopter, fly as high as possible over Star Junction so we can land on the roof of a building and have to fight our way through tons of enemies just to get to Ashaveli, who just falls from the building, and we skydive out of the building and land on a truck, almost, and escape with Timur. After another nap, we meet back up with Tony, who is freaking out because Gracie has been taken. We head to a heliport and fly, following cars supposed to know where Gracie is being held. We find out where he's going and fly away, without finding out for ourselves. But, oh well, time to go see Yusuf again, who is at his construction site, who wants us to steal an entire subway train. We jump on the train from above and immediately start having police try and stop us, but yet another overpowered shotgun just takes them out. We detach a train car and Yusuf picks us up with a wannabe cargo bob and leaves us in a ballpark, and well, that's it. But that just leaves us to go see a Bulgarian who needs us to go and meet with Timur when we are ambushed for stealing the diamonds, which we did, but we have to say we didn't, but either way, they do not stop coming. After barely escaping with our teeth intact, we head back to meet Tony and he wants us to drive him to a fish market so we can get Gracie back in return for the diamonds. We get in a water vroom and trade Gracie for the diamonds when we are ambushed and flee to make sure she's safe. We go to the park to meet up with the one and only Rocco, who meets us in the bathroom and gives us a choice between us and Tony dying. And well, they should know we are more loyal than most, because we immediately run over to Tony, and while thinking about shooting him, we turn the guns on the others, killing Vince, leaving just us and Tony to take care of Bulgarian's ranks pouring into the nightclub. We meet Tony again, and we have a little lover spat, and then go to Funland, and tell Tony to go into hiding while we take care of everyone that's threatening us. After clearing out the park, we head to the Duke's Expressway, where Yusuf pulls through and escorts us to the airport, destroying anyone in our way, and we chase after a jet that's about to fly off with Bulgarian still inside. And not only do we kill his groupies, but him while he's holding a grenade, so the entire front of the plane is just gone. And we have to skydive out like the badasses we are. We head to the park where Tony was hiding out, and that's it. The diamonds aren't our problem anymore, and the people trying to kill us are gone. And how would it not be a good ending without Yusuf pulling up?
What's up, my niggas?
Going from The Lost and the Damned to this story is a light and day difference in quality and character development. We see another character in Luis doing whatever he can to take care of the people around him. Tony pulls him out of the gutter, and Luis does everything he can to keep him on track, even if it could land him multiple life sentences. His mother borrows money from a loan shark, and Luis gets her out of the situation by fighting in an illegal backroom fight club, when Luis has money he could have given her. Then even Luis's childhood friends, he helps them out with their drug deals and escaping from the police after already doing a stint in prison. Luis, while being selfish of course, wanting money and to move up in the world, stays on a lower level to help out those he cares about. Seeing how hard he works, there is no doubt that he could surpass Tony and become his own person. I mean, he's also an amazing hired killer, but that's not the point. Again, here we see so many points where the story overlaps from the original story and even that of The Lost and the Damned. The most standout of these examples being the whole diamond debacle. We see it from the perspective of Tony and how Luis takes control and is able to escape with his life, but only his life. Since if you know, we killed the diamond haver who turns out to be Tony's ex or current or ex-boyfriend who isn't good for Tony. Tony is constantly trying to kick his addiction and get his life back together, but this asshole keeps coming back, getting him drugged up and ruining the life Tony is trying to build back to. Maybe he doesn't make the best decisions about how to get back to that life, but Luis is still trying his best to help, but Tony falls into the loop over and over. Like, Luis is willing to not only work with a psychopathic rich man just to try and dig Tony out and to get an easy escape during the Libertonian heist. He not only murders someone to begin with, but then jumps in the window where in the building just outside of the door there is a massive firefight, and then leaves through the roof where he came in, where cops are trying to take him out. Also, Tony can have back the $2 million worth of diamonds that were stolen. Why does Luis do this for Tony? And why do we just murder every person Dan Bulgarian is willing to throw at us? Even getting onto a plane that fucking explodes and we have to skydive out, like some sort of action hero. All for a man who doesn't give him the same respect back. But he does get respect from Yusuf, who loves to say a specific word I cannot say and will not say. It's interesting seeing that character because again, I knew people like that growing up in Atlanta. Not necessarily in the multi-million-dollar apartment, but the over-the-top weirdo that brings a weird fun energy to normal conversations, saying the most ridiculous shit to make a point. I can't say many other characters in this campaign I can personally relate to, because from Ray to Enrique, they're all fucking insane and over the top, and that's something I like about the GTA games. It's not like Saints Row where it's just wacky, but they're people with blown-up personalities. Alongside these characters, I think the missions are a little more interesting than just point and shoot like a lot of the other campaign. We get to do a lot more interesting things from driving a boat, parachuting constantly, and stealing a damn helicopter from a yacht, then using it to slaughter the people we stole it from. There is the slightest bit of variety that it doesn't feel like a slog to get through. What's weird is that one of my biggest complaints was that we felt way too overpowered and unstoppable in The Lost and the Damned, but even more so here, but it feels a little bit more balanced. Even though now, more than ever, we are murdering people by the thousands, faster than ever, we get a shotgun that has explosive rounds and a fucking buzzard, and it feels like the power we hold makes sense. A sawed-off shotgun isn't killing people from hundreds of feet away, but an explosive shotgun is taking down helicopters. See, it just makes more sense. With that being said, I don't believe I talked about the gameplay and the shooting in general, because I'm a dumbass who wanted to structure this video all weird, and the shooting on controller in GTA 4 has to be one of my least favorite shooting mechanics to come out of Rockstar in general. I sort of explained it when talking about Red Dead Redemption's much better system, but for us to be able to aim, we have to use the left trigger, right? That makes sense. But that locks us on to center mass, which also makes sense. But it keeps us locked center mass, and we have to actively fight against it, which makes it more difficult to get headshots. But we can free aim by half holding the trigger, which is just not right. I can forgive only being able to hold one weapon of each type and having to cycle through these weapons with the D-pad, but this just feels horrible these days. I didn't notice how bad it was back in the day when I originally played GTA 4, even before the release of GTA 5. Yes, I do sometimes play games close to when they release, but today that shooting and the driving are just so horrid. Every vehicle in the game feels like a boat. If you have any speed at all, you're probably hitting the wall on the other side of the street. Even if you're going slow, it feels like you're trying to do a U-turn in a semi-truck. And the only way to get around this bad driving mechanic and have a bit of precise movement is to use a motorcycle. But while the cars are heavy, like to stick to the ground, and are literal boats, the motorcycles weigh as much as the clothes on your back. If you hit a bump, you will go flying straight into the air. Now, you may say I'm being nitpicky, but I have to knock off those 2 points somewhere. The game, honestly, by 2023 standards, it just doesn't play very well. But it plays well enough to be playable and enjoyable. I honestly think my opinions are mostly due to being absolutely spoiled by modern Rockstar game design, where it's just better. But that doesn't mean this game didn't do anything good enough to be carried over and fleshed out in later entries. There are quite a few major changes that either carried over or would show up later, the most prominent being something we see quite a few times in the main campaign itself. The fucking nightclubs, let's go! Jokes aside, what I really want to mention being the introduction of the Buzzard, one of the most iconic GTA helicopters, and skydiving and parachuting, which wasn't in the original GTA 4 release, but is a huge part of GTA these days. Not only in the main campaign of GTA 5, but also in the online, there are these bass drums, and surprise surprise, they're here too. The only issue I have here is the feel of both. To shoot the Buzzard weapons and rockets, you have to tilt, and there is no enemy lock-on, and during the missions where we use it, we are over water, and since we have to tilt, we slowly go down towards the water, and it's super easy to just end up falling in. Like I've said over and over, it's so amazing to see their brains ticking, and seeing things carry over, even things like golf, which I believe this is the first major golf experience, even if it's just a little top golf sort of thing. I also think that this is the first time we see the drug wars, where we take down a group of enemies and steal their drugs, which comes back in certain ways from free roam events to gang battles in certain parts of the map. All in all, we have 3 great DLCs. One slightly less so, but they all bring something new to the table, and besides story beats, leave nothing to be desired. And Toboggan fixes a lot of the issues I had with Tirata, and adds more to the game than just little adjustments and new weapons like most DLCs. So, I think it has to be a solid 8 or 9, but I'm leaning towards an 8 just considering my feelings for Undead Nightmare. It's sad to think that this may never be a thing continuing in the GTA or Red Dead Redemption series. We will probably never get another single player DLC for a Rockstar game. I seriously hope that I can look— oh my god, I'm going to break your neck, Siri, go away. I seriously hope I can look back at this video in the upcoming years and say I was wrong. But I don't think that will happen. Just like the existence of a Bloodborne remake, which I'm also sad that that'll probably never happen. I haven't played it yet, but I love the way it looks, and it would be great to have a native PS5 version. I'm getting sidetracked, but Rockstar is so focused on their online experiences that if there is ever truly another single player DLC, I will forfeit my rights and send myself to live in the jungle and eventually get eaten by a jaguar. This is going on longer than expected, so like I always say, I guess, what the fuck do I know?